Hey guys, we are live. I am messing with some technology on this one. So I said, fantastic opportunity to check my technology and also go live. So this one's new for me. I'm live streaming on three platforms all at once. Normally I pick one and I just go with it. So we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So we're going to see how this one goes. But this one's going to be kind of an open Q&A. Anything you guys want to talk about dog training related, dog behavior, so on and so forth. This one is open to all discussions relating to dogs and dog training. I hope you guys all had a fantastic weekend and looking forward to discussing with you. Morgan says, how do you teach the hold and bark? Well, that's a whole process, my friend. That's not something where it's like, oh, yeah, just do this and that and you're good to go. But fundamentally, what he's referring to is the exercise in IGP where the dog comes in front of the helper and does the barking, right? The way that you teach that is first, everything starts with the foundation. People get focused on the end result, and the end result is things like you see, like long attacks and bark and holds and all of these things. But you cannot do these things unless you lay the foundation in properly. And the foundation comes from the dog having a fundamental understanding of what gripping is. Okay, well, the correct way to grip, the correct way to strike, the correct way to target, and then when he does not have access to the bite, what he must do, right? All of these things you must lay the foundation in. So before you ever see a dog that's training with me on a bark and hold, that dog spends a long time on a back tie building the fundamental pieces that he or she needs in order to be able to exhibit the bark and hold that you guys see. So for me, I work from the grip outwards. I start teaching the dog the correct gripping behavior, striking, what he should do when he's in front of me, what he should do when he's in the escape position, what he should do in the drive, all of these things. And I spend a long time on the back tie before I ever send the dog loose for a bark and hold. And I build the foundation there. And then when you send the dog in, he knows what to do. He knows how to bark. Everything in dog training, there's a rhythm to it. Okay. So when you think about barking, a lot of people think about, okay, like I need him to just bark. But what I need from a dog, and this should help you, is I need the dog to understand the rhythm of barking, right? It's not just, so many people just reward, right? And it doesn't make any sense for the dog. And that's why they constantly struggle with this behavior, whether the dog isn't making noise, whether the dog is being dirty, all of these things. What the dog needs to actually understand is, number one, what is the desired behavior? Like, you might think he knows how to bark because he barks a lot, but in many cases they actually don't know how to bark, and they don't know that barking is the desired behavior. Number two, if I bark, what do I get? And for different dogs, that might be a different type of reinforcement that they need in order to incentivize that behavior to be displayed in a powerful, active, and reliable way. And then, last but not least, what is the rhythm to the behavior, right? And you'll see a lot of dogs lack rhythm in the barking. And you must teach them how to find the rhythm and then reward them for the rhythm. And yes, I do need to do a course on it. I know. Hello, everyone. My boy TJ says, "Hey Has, thanks for the advice. You know what? Let me fix these comments because I don't think the comments are big enough here. Oh, I see the problem here. We go wide and we go medium. There we go. All right. Hey Has, thanks for the advice the other day. Just wondering, what bark collars do you use for your kennels? I don't really use bark collars in my kennels. I use me. So if I don't want dogs to bark in the kennel, I let them know, hey man, don't do that. And I let them know in a very clear way. And then if they persist, with the barking, I will physically correct them. I don't typically use any kind of devices for that. And that is actually the most effective way of removing the barking. Now, if you're not home, for sure, you can use bark collars. Dogtrail YS 300 is very effective. Dogtrail YS 600 is even more effective. Keep in mind, though, if you have multiple dogs, they can set each other's bark collars off. So if you want bark collars that don't get set off by other dogs, the Sport Dog Deluxe bark collar is the only one I've seen that doesn't do that. Any new contest for the public? No, but there will be a new contest for my elite training group, the people that are in my online courses. What do I think about belly rubbing a puppy? Some say it reinforces submissiveness. I mean, if the dog enjoys it, by all means do it. It does not reinforce submissiveness. Terrell says, I have your Sport Dog course. I highly recommend it. It has taught me a lot. Fantastic. I'm glad you enjoy it. My courses are not like, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's very much in depth with all the behaviors and showing you multiple ways to achieve an outcome. It's not do this, do this, do this. Oh, crap, he doesn't have food drive. You're SOL, right? There are multiple ways to achieve a behavior, especially when it comes to, things like behavior modification, pet training, various things. So, I like showing people multiple ways and then really kind of like, okay, I know it looks easy the way I'm doing it because I do it a lot, but keep in mind your dog may do X, Y, and Z. And that's because I've instructed so many people. So I put a lot of that into my courses where, hey, your dog might do X, Y, and Z. If you see X, Y, and Z, do this, do this, do this, right? Tristan says, just went to our first IGP meet in Michigan. Going to be getting a BH and a 1 this spring with my Dutchie. Love watching your journey. Has, keep it up. Thank you. And I'm glad you got out and did some IGP. Nicole Marie says, hi, Has, I have purchased your puppy course and have a 3. Fantastic. A 3 like an IGP 3 or 3 like 3 puppies? My boy says, hey, Has, thanks for your advice the other day on breaking the heel at a distance. Just wondering what bark collars you use in your kennels and if they will cater for, okay, I think I already answered that. And the answer to that question is some bark collars will catch whining and others will not. Mr. McAllister says, which e-collar has the most power? I have a large dominant Mastiff. I have a 2X collar RX90 medium box, and when he's in drive, it doesn't even twitch on full. Yeah, I don't know if there's an e-collar that can really stop a full-grown Mastiff. I would experiment. So for me, Dogtra 1900 is what I use. But even then, like, what do you mean drive? That's my question to you. What do you mean drive? Like he's trying to kill somebody? There is no e-collar on this planet Earth that is going to stop a full-grown male angry Mastiff from, killing somebody or another dog if they're like full power, committed to that. That is not what the e-collar will do, if that's what you mean. If you mean like, oh, like he's just excited and, I don't know, chasing something or whatever, then yeah, that's a different story. But I would go back and look at like my foundation and his true understanding of what it is that we're doing and so on and so forth. How are things going with Carson and his new dog? Very well. It's a good dog. Luke Wan says, hello, sir. Hope you have a wonderful and enjoyable weekend. Thank you. I did. Morgan says, do you know how the dog barks and at the same time they make their feet go up and down? That's also what I'm trying to know how to teach. Yeah, we don't teach them to bounce up and down, but a lot of them will bounce up and down once they actually understand the behavior. It's just a byproduct of the behavior of barking in a rhythm, right? The dog gets into a rhythm, woof, 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 right? That is a dog that is comfortable, confident in the behavior, and he's in a rhythm. Every behavior has a rhythm. And when you can teach the dog the rhythm, they're going to be able to maintain that for so much longer. JD says, if you withhold meal times before starting to build power, let me make this big. How's that? If you withhold meal times before starting to build power excitement on the back tie, will it help build that behavior more? If the food drive is not naturally there, it is not possible. No, absolutely. Look, I don't feed my puppies. I train them daily and they eat in the training. So, absolutely. Like, I don't know who feeds their dog and then tries to train with food. It kind of is counterintuitive. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And of course, they're going to run out of interest in doing that, over a short period of time. So absolutely, like, I don't feed my dogs, other than in training, if I'm training them with food. Like my adult dogs, they don't train with food other than in track. So they actually eat out of a bowl. A-Type K9 says, hello, can we get the likes up? Has is very generous. Well, thank you with his time. Give him the likes. I appreciate that. Yes, give me some likes. Likes boost the stream on the algorithm and more people get to see it. Greetings from Brantford. Well, greetings to you, sir. Daniel says, can you advise for my dog how to start training for basic obedience? Look, with anything, you must follow a system and a plan. Like, what do you think I'm going to tell you, like, on a live? Okay, you must do this, and that. We'll be talking for hours, okay? Fundamentally, if you want to train your dog in obedience, and you're speaking basic obedience, that means you have, like, a pet dog, and you want the dog to be well-behaved and to listen to you. Very simple. All you have to do is follow a system that makes sense, right? For you and for the dog. And you just need to train progressively through that system. Pet obedience takes no longer than like 6 weeks to 2 months to train if you have a dog that's older than the age of 6 months. It's not hard at all, right? So my suggestion to you, and I laughed, I'll tell you guys why I laughed in a second. My suggestion to you, get my Elite Off-Leash Obedience course. That'll teach you how to do all the obedience that your dog will ever need to learn. And that's on my shieldk9online.com site. Or you can get my book, quite cheap, and it's all written out, right? $20 on Amazon, No Nonsense Dog Training, and I step-by-step how to train your dog off leash. Obviously, the video courses are going to be a lot easier for you to follow along, but even the book, I have many people that have told me they were able to fully train their dogs simply from reading the book. And it's a set out plan, and it's literally hours and hours of content, condensed and organized for you so you can train your dog through the system. So yeah, that's my advice to you. I laughed. So I laughed. Why? Because I don't know. I post a lot of reels, and occasionally I'll catch like a comment on the reels, right? Sometimes I got nothing better to do, so I'm reading the comments just for funsies. And this one guy posted on one of my reels, like he posted some long thing, but fundamentally it's like, like you do pattern-based sport training, and I'm like this I work with clinical dog behavior and blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up, bro. You don't like this. It's like boasting. It's like, yeah, you do Formula One racing and I drive to the grocery store every day. It's like, shut up, bro. Like, what do you think I did for many, many years? Why do you think people know me? People know me for my pet dog training, right? Pet behavior, pet dog training. It's not complicated. That's the fantastic news for all of you. It is not complicated. It is easy to do. Okay. Pet dog training takes no time at all. It is very simple. It is very easy. Behavior modification doesn't take much time at all. It is very easy. It is very simple. Okay. Clinical. Dude's trying to make it sound like he's a doctor. It's like, bro, it's dog training. Okay. This is literally how, I pay the bills, is with dog training, right? We have a world famous dog training system and facility. We train so many pet dogs here. I don't make a living training sport dogs. There's like really no money in that. I do it for fun, just like all the big car manufacturers do the Formula One racing or whatever, and they lose money on it, right? For me, it's the same with dog sport. I lose money on dog sport, but it's fun. And because it's optimized performance, right? So yeah, anyways, that was a little side note. How do you train a Malinois that screams too much with the e-collar? Jesus. Is something wrong with his nerves? He overreacts for no reason. He's both sensitive and stubborn with the collar. It's funny. I actually know exactly what you're talking about, right? The dog will tank the collar, and then all of a sudden overstimulate because you've dialed it up and overreact, right? Fundamentally, you've got a conditioning problem. You never actually taught the dog how to properly respond to the collar, and that's why you're having that problem. You also probably have a contact problem where the dog's getting inconsistent contact, where you're like, he's not feeling it or he's not reacting to it, but really he's just not feeling it because the contact's not good. And then all of a sudden you hit full contact, and then boom, like the dog overreacts. So you actually need to condition the collar properly. The collar is not what a lot of people think the e-collar is. okay, this is the you didn't listen button. So I push it when you don't listen. Oh no, he's still not listening. Let me dial it up until he's listening. Boom. All of a sudden he overstimulates because you put way too much on him and then he overreacts. That's really not how I use the e-collar. I condition the e-collar so the dog understands the language of the collar, just like I condition a leash so the dog understands the language of the leash, right? Before I ever start using it to correct the dog. OT says, I have emailed and sent a message, have had no response. I'm looking into boarding and training my Malmix. Any help with that? Well, yeah, we can certainly help you with that. I quite frankly don't understand why you wouldn't have any response. I literally have full-time people that answer the phone all the time. So if you call our new customer line, which is literally on the website, I can't even tell it to you off the top of my head because I don't know it. Somebody should answer the phone immediately. I guarantee if you call him right now, he'll answer the phone. I'm going to give you the number. I am going to give you the number. Yeah, he will answer. He will answer the phone, or even if he doesn't answer the phone, you text him. He'll call you back within like 10 minutes. I guarantee it. Got to find him though. You know what? Guys, give me a second. I'm going to ruin the stream searching for this number though. All right. I'm going to find it after and I'll post it. It's on the website though. But I am, yeah. 226-962-3341. That is the phone number. 226-962-3341. There you go. All right. Nicole Marie says, I purchased your puppy course and I do IGP with my puppy. What course do you recommend recommend us take? When training in public, can I use a ball with my puppy instead of food? You can, Nicole, but I mean, for me, jumping to the ball too quickly is not something that I prefer to do. I prefer to actually lay the foundation in properly with food, really build a true understanding of body mechanics and all the mechanical. So training, you can break training into two pieces, okay? So piece number one is mechanical, right? That's where the dog learns how to move their body, you know, how to respond to nonverbal and verbal signals. And yes, we give the dogs nonverbal signals all the time in training. You might not realize you do it, but you do it all the time. And the dog should understand how, what behavior to offer contingent on those signals, obviously, right? So you must spend time shaping these behaviors. And if you do that with a ball, the problem with the ball is I always say like the ball is like nitrous, right? It's like nitrous. Those of you familiar with the cars, right? When you put like, you know, Fast and the Furious, right? They got this Honda Civic and it's all done up and then they got the nitrous in the back and they hit the nitrous button and all of a sudden it like supercharges the car and the car is like performing 2x what it would normally be able to perform. The reason why I don't use the ball early is because it supercharges everything, but it also makes it a lot harder for the dog to think about what they're doing. And in the beginning, when we're building behavior and when we're teaching the dog the mechanics of how to move and where to move and how to respond to the verbal and nonverbal signals, the ball is going to confuse that because it's just going to drive them too crazy. It's kind of like if you were trying to drive through like a very, you know, treacherous, narrow road with a lot of like obstacles and stuff, and you hit the nitrous button, right? You're going to crash into a whole bunch of stuff and you're not going to be able to navigate that properly. It's the same with the dogs. Also, spending the time there and really building that foundation properly, when you do bring the ball and the prey into the picture, now all of a sudden it's like everything you did becomes 2 to 3x, right? The power and the commitment that the dog has, if they have drive for the ball, of course, if they have like true drive. So spend your time and build those behaviors carefully. The ball is not something that you need for training at such an early age, in my opinion. Where is the link for the Elite Gold program? It's available at shieldk9online.com. Scroll down the homepage and you'll see it. What is the best working line German Shepherd I have seen, in my opinion? That's a good question. You know, everything's subjective. I mean, they all have something, and they're all, they could all use improvement. There's no such thing as a perfect being, right? Obviously some dogs I really like. I like my friend Jack's dog, Ike the Lupus Salvis. Is he a perfect dog? No, he's not. Obviously, I really like Carson's new dog, actually. The more we train, the more I like him. Yarrow, from Eisenkreis. That's a fantastic dog as well. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good dogs out there. Chico, fantastic dog. Sorry, guys, I ended up scrolling down too fast and I missed a whole bunch of the questions here. Okay, I found where I'm at. 9-week-old working line German Shepherd. Have had him for 2 weeks. High prey drive, but no food drive. Is it too early to know? Well, yes, you can see food drive very early. It's actually one of the drives that you can properly evaluate very early. But I would say that if you aren't feeding him from a bowl, and you're only offering him food and training, I don't care what the level of drive is, that you should start getting some willingness relatively quickly. As someone that has the elite gold, I highly recommend it. Supercharge my dogs. That's from Coolan. Awesome, man. Happy to hear it. What are my thoughts on real dogs and the importance to the breeding pool? Real dogs is often a term thrown around by people that don't know actually what a real dog is, and it's an excuse that they have for their lack of ability to train a dog, to a high level of impulse control such that it could pass a basic IGP title. Or a basic sport title, right? So usually I'm very wary of anybody that speaks about real dogs, because in most cases, when you look under the hood, so to speak, you find an incompetent person that, their stated prowess on Facebook greatly exceeds their actual ability as a trainer. And that's evident when you see the work that they're able to do. So my take on that is there is a valid conversation to be had about dogs that are pleasers, dogs that, they have a very high desire to please, and they're quite sensitive, and it doesn't take a lot of pressure, to get them to do the right thing. And they're also, usually quite drivey, and, they have a typical kind of what I call the Malinois mindset, right? Your average Malinois very much fits that. I know a lot of people get, what do you mean? Malinois aren't sensitive. I know for you, they're not, but for those of us that know what we're doing, they are, right? Which is why they're actually desirable to train. But anyways, again, sidebar. For these types of dogs, there's nothing wrong with breeding high quality individuals that fall within that type, but too much of that stacked on top of one another, you end up getting dogs that are too soft and that lack the independence and the grit, so to speak, that to be able to do actual man work. And a big part of the herding dog, the herders that we use, whether it's the German Shepherd, the Malinois, and the other herders, is that they must do man work. They must fight with a man. They must combat with a man, whether it's in dog sport, in real life, if you're talking about real world applications, so on and so forth. And that takes a certain something in the dog. And if the dog is just, such a pleaser, and you're doubling down on the traits that make a dog a pleaser, right? AKA less dominance, less independence, less, in many cases, courage. What happens is you have a dog that's no longer able to do that. In some cases, you have a dog that can, show some level of I'm playing the game, but they can't actually do it for real. So, but here's the thing that you have to understand. In dog sport, there are plenty of those dogs, like real dogs, like dogs that will bite you for real, dogs that will mess you up for real, that you don't need to go and find some dude who's running his mouth on Facebook about his dog that's so real, because there's many of them available in dog sport. And those of us that, are in dog sport, no. And these are the dogs that will produce the next generation. And these are the dogs that people go to. This idea that, people only go to dogs that win. This is an asinine idea. I've been involved in dog sport now for 15 years, and I have not seen that the vast majority of breeders just go to dogs that win. Surely some breeders do that, and they go and they do commercial breedings, because they know that obviously dogs that are famous on the podium, there's a certain panache or cachet to these dogs, and people will buy the puppies. But in many cases, I see breeders often going to dogs that did not win, dogs that maybe didn't out, dogs that, are known for their hardness and their extremity in drive. Like, for instance, I've had people contact me for breeding to Chico, right? Because he's clearly the kind of dog that you would want to breed to. So, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of real dogs that people are breeding to. But for sure, if you go to the more compliant types and you keep breeding compliant to compliant to compliant, you're going to have some serious problems within a generation or two. What is the main difference in level 1, 2, and 3 protection? You're speaking about the protection dogs that we sell. I would strongly recommend you go on the website, and we literally have a description of each level. I'm not really going to get into that here because I don't want to turn this live into an infomercial. Let's see here. Luan says, do you have a plan to bring Mr. Anley back for another podcast episode? I see Anley way too often. Like almost every other day. But yeah, we'll probably do another podcast episode. Yeah. James Nick says, thank you for what you do. I plan on joining your elite training group. I love your training. Thank you, sir. Insaf is a beaut. Yes, he is. Tristan Kolchar says, what are the highest level meets in IGP? What are the requirements for invites for, say, a regional or national competition? Well, it's not really invites. It's a question of qualifying. So you're speaking about the highest level in IGP. There are two competitions that most people would consider to be the highest level in IGP. Number one, the FCI World Championship, and number two, the WUSV World Championship. Probably the WUSV World Championship would be considered the most prestigious because it's the original and it's for the German Shepherd. And the FCI is the All Breed World Championship, which is run by the FCI, which is the European Kennel Club, right? So both of those would be the top level when it comes to IGP. Now, how do you get to a regional championship? Well, first, in most cases, you simply need an IGP3 or at the minimum an IGP2 to compete in the IGP3 level at a regional championship. Once you have a qualifying score at a regional, you can then go to the national. At the national, usually the top, well, not usually, in almost all cases, the top 5 people at the national will comprise their country's world team and will then go to the world championship. Rob Colley says, starting your puppy to adult course with a Rottweiler now. Looking forward to sharing some full power. Good luck, sir, and hopefully I see you in the group. When do I feed my dogs before a competition? Well, preferably hours before we step on the field, so it's good. They're good and digested. Ian White says, hi, Has, what's the story with Hammer? I saw that he's available. Well, it's like I've always said, when I take a prospect and I raise the prospect and I start to train the dog, I don't have in my mind that I'm keeping the dog forever. I have in my mind that I'm going to try the dog and I'm going to see that if he and I mesh. So, Hammer has fantastic drive. Problem with Hammer is he has thick thresholds, which means that he doesn't go around looking for an adrenaline fix all the time, right? He's a pretty calm fella, right? So I had him in the house and he's chilling out and he's calm. He doesn't have that kind of adrenaline junkie live wire, personality that I look for personally in my sport dogs. I like him crazy, right? I like him crazy. I like to be always like, hey, bro, calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down. And he's more like, he's calm. And I'm like, all right, bro, pick it up. And, he picks it up. Absolutely. And he has fantastic food drive and really high prey drive, like more than enough prey drive for any level of dog sport or anything you want to do with the dog in the real world. And he's going to, I can see he has some edge to him. So he'll actually be really nice in protection. He would be fantastic in tracking because of the food drive. And the personality actually lends itself to really calm tracking, which is what you need at the top level. My thing with him is I don't think I'm going to get the performance I want out of him in the stadium in obedience. Not the way I like it. And I could be wrong about it, but for me, I've decided, you know what, everything I don't like about him, almost everybody else would love about him because he's an easy keeper. He has the gas to do whatever you want to do with him, but then he's also able to really chill out and just hang out. He's got an off switch, as they say. And for me, I don't really like dogs personally that have off switches. That's my own personal taste, right? And if I'm going to be spending hours and hours every day training the dog, I have to love the dog. So for that reason, I've decided to make Hammer available. He will be available as he is, and no, he's not cheap. He will be available as he is, or he will be available with any of our training packages. Let's see what else we got here. How do I dress handle clients who cancel frequently? Well, you cancel on me a couple of times, and then you no longer exist as far as I'm concerned. So, everybody has their own way. But for me, it's simply, obviously life happens and sometimes you have to cancel. But, if you keep doing it, then clearly you don't value my time. So I'm not going to value yours. See you later. Good luck somewhere else. Let's see here. James Nick says Elite Gold is an awesome deal. I think so. DNV says getting a puppy from Django to Lupus Savis in the next 2 weeks. Can't wait. Getting your Elite Gold package tomorrow. Plus got Brady lined up as decoy training. Your videos make me more motivated. Fantastic. Yeah, Brady's a good guy. I met him in Iowa a few years ago, I believe. He was a cool guy. Nice guy. Wing contact points are your friend. Oh, you're talking to a person who is struggling with stimulation. Where do I get my scratch pants? I don't wear scratch pants. You're talking about my Arak pants. So if you use promo code HAS10 at Arak Outdoor USA, ARRAK, Arak USA, just Google it. They'll pop up. That's where I get all my pants. And you can use promo code HAS10 and get 10% off. What do I think about giant schnauzers? They're dogs. That's what I think about them. DNV says Calvin always gets back to me from your office. Great communication. Yeah, I think so. That fellow was saying he couldn't reach us. I don't know. I don't know who he's calling. Blake Gibson says, Salam, brother. I have a 4-month-old working line German Shepherd. I think I've made myself nervous about hips joints. I read somewhere letting them do stairs before 6 months old will ruin hips. Will it? Well, if it would, then I would say that the hips are already ruined. I've been carrying him up and down and trying to keep him from jumping on the couch. No, man. Bro, let the dog live. This idea. Oh, the dog can't do anything. We have to wrap him in bubble wrap until he's a year old so that we can x-ray the hips and the elbows. Look, like obviously there's reasonable things. Like I'm not going to let my puppy jump off the back of like a pickup truck bed and land on the ground a bunch of times. Yeah, they can probably, maybe do a little bit of make some slight arthritic changes in their elbows and maybe, cost you an elbow certification. But like even that, this idea that you have to like not allow your German Shepherd to do anything because, it's going to ruin the hips is nonsensical, right? The hips are either good or they're not. Also, I would simply say, if you look at how for generations we raised our dogs and kept our dogs and did things with our dogs, literally from like 6 months, 6 months onwards, the dogs were out and running around and doing all sorts of things, right? It does not cause, damage to them. And if it did, then I would question, the veracity of that dog. I would say, okay, well, there's something wrong with this dog if simply running around before he's a year old causes these problems, which it doesn't. Getting a working line giant schnauzer for protection work. What do you think about the breed? I mean, I think you can get some good ones. But, it's an off-breed for a reason. Shafi Plus says, hey, Has, during play, when my dog counters or shakes the prey dead, can I play impress with body movements? Yeah, sure. Like whatever you reinforce, the dog will do again, right? Right. So if you offer that, then for sure the dog will enjoy the game, but will probably offer that behavior more and more. So if that's something that you're okay with, by all means do it, right? I tend to play up a lot for my dog when I play with them, when I do bite work with them, all of these things. How do you slow a Malinois down? He travels too fast inside the house. He knocks into people and furniture and even steps hard on their feet. There's nothing to excite him. He just moves fast for no reason. Well, yeah, that's a Malinois. I don't let my dogs tear around the house, right? So I keep them in a state of structure in the house, utilize the plays command. When I'm not home, they're in a crate. Especially when they're young. When they're older and they've kind of built this idea that we don't do anything in the house, we just calm down, relax, lie around, then for sure I start to give them freedom. But in the beginning, when they're like little and young, I don't allow this crazy behavior. Raul Garcia says, has in the reactive course you had a choke chain on a Pressamix and was explaining why you're using it but didn't finish because I think Zima got knocked out. Seema got knocked out. Uh, I don't remember. I don't remember, but I don't generally use choke chains at all. You know, maybe he was a dog that bit the dog. I can't remember the dog, to be honest with you, but maybe he was a dog that bit the dominant dog collar, and most dominant dog collars are made from paracord. So you know, maybe he's one of those that like bites the dominant dog collar and like you can break it in a heartbeat, right? If a dog bites it, so maybe that's why I was using the choke chain. Um, No, I can't compare my training to somebody else's. I only know what I do. I'm only an expert at what I do. I'm not going to talk about somebody else's stuff. So, you know, go by all means, go do their stuff and then, you know, maybe try some of my stuff and see which one you like the best. Are your customers for law enforcement mainly in Canada or all over the world? One thing I've wondered in seeing this is from the Virgo Trader. A lot of canine work is why the dogs don't have some kind of vest on similar to human. Well, you know, because the vest, number one, uh, not all. So there are some agencies that will use like um, vests, whether they're stab resistant or I think they even have bulletproof ones now. But again, you have to think about how a dog is shaped, right? And where the protection is going to be. And the problem with that is that there are still a lot of vulnerable areas. The other problem is overheating. And then the big problem really is the price of these things. They're extremely expensive because they're a lot more expensive than like a human vest would be. Like you can get a nice, you know, vest for a human being for like a few $100. You know, you start getting into that kind of stuff for a canine, extremely expensive, thousands of dollars because it's custom and it's not made in high quantity. The other thing as well is most agencies, the dogs aren't being sent into high risk situations. You know, I had a dog killed at an agency last year, and typically they don't send the dog into high risk situations, but this dog just happened to come across a murder suspect. But they, you know, the dude shot like the dog found the guy and the dude shot him right between the ears. You know what I mean? It's like there's no vest for that, right? Like, unfortunately, you know, but in so doing, potentially saved an officer's life, right? Because he you know, found the guy. And obviously the guy gave away his position with the gunshot and killing the canine. But at the same time, it gave everybody else the opportunity to, you know, find cover and return fire and deal with him appropriately. He did survive, the bad guy I'm speaking about, and you know, no human officers were killed in the process. So, you know, but yeah, those are the reasons probably why. How did I learn to be well spoken? Well, I speak a lot. The more you speak about something, whether it's in person or on the internet, the better you get. Also, here's a little thing that I've never really said, I think, to people is the reason I do these lives every so often is it kind of helps me to think about what I'm doing. It helps me to think about dog training because you guys will ask me stuff or I'll be talking about stuff and I'll be like, you know what, I never really quite thought about it that way. Or, you know, it gives me the ability to kind of sharpen my communication skills. Because sometimes I'll speak about something and I won't be happy with how I spoke about it. I'll say, you know, I could have been a lot more eloquent. I could have spoken about that thing in a much more effective manner. And then going through that and working that out and then say, well, what's a better way to say that? And then going through that, you know, so this is part of the reason why I actually like doing lives because it helps me be actually a better communicator when it comes to this profession that is, you know, dog training and dog behavior. Luke says the vast majority of real dogs, when you get rid of the BS, there isn't half the dog left. Learned that from you. Well, absolutely. It's because they weren't real. They were out of control, but people confuse out of control with real. Whatever happened to Kevin? I gave Kevin to a sheep farmer, and he lives with that sheep farmer. Yeah, again, we speak about dog behavior. Like, how many of these things do I have to do? You're talking about, oh, you do a pattern sport work. It's like, bro, did you see my series with Kevin? Did you see my series with Mace? And these were just the stuff that I caught on video. I spent, the last 15 years training pet dogs, dealing with behavioral problems. If you can't do that, you're not going to make a living dealing with dogs. Like, people think you make money in dog sport or even police dogs or protection dogs. It's like, not really. The big money, in terms of, like, if you want to make a reasonable income training dogs, you better be a good pet dog trainer. That's 99% of your clients are pet dog people. And if you don't understand, how to help people that have pet dogs, and all the behavioral issues that you see with the pet dogs, you're not really going to have much meaningful success. Political Grunt says, how do I get my 19-week-old male working line German Shepherd from being so aggressive on walks to people and other dogs? Well, I mean, he's 19 weeks, so he's not aggressive. He's reactive. 19 weeks, how many months old is that? I'm bad at math right now. He's almost 5 months old. So soon he'll be old enough for the reactive course. I mean, look, with puppies, I'm not so worried about reactivity. I just don't allow them to, like, linger on it and marinate it. I just keep it moving with puppies. Sometimes they'll stop and they'll be like, whoa, 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 come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's go. Come on. We don't have time for this, right? And usually they're kind of like a child, that throws a temper tantrum, and then you just, like, move them along, and then they've already kind of forgotten about it and they're on to the next thing, right? But the more you kind of try and, like, spend time there and, like, come on, stop, look at me, have a cookie, all this nonsense, right? Even, like, no, and correcting them and stuff like it's like it just makes it worse because they don't have the brain yet to deal with that. They're just overstimulated. And yes, when they're older, you may have to address that to some degree, and that's fine. But when they're young like that, just keep it moving. If your dog was 6 months plus, I'd say take my reactive rehab course and get that problem solved. And it's very quick to solve it. How do you know if a dog is actually a real one? My Malinois just bit my face recently. I was lucky. He does that. That's from All Right Buddy. Nice name. He does that when he doesn't want to do what I'm telling him simply. Yeah, like, if your dog was a real dog, you'd probably be hospitalized. You're just speaking about bratty behavior. Protest biting and all this type of stuff. It's just bratty behavior. If you knew what you're doing and you corrected him for it, he probably wouldn't do it anymore, right? So, how do you know if a dog is a real dog? Well, you won't know because you don't have the requisite expertise to know. How would somebody like me know? Well, number one, I've seen enough of them that I know what I'm looking at. Number two, there's a number of things. So, first of all, you can see that the dog has a true intent in the aggression. Most dogs put on aggression for one of two reasons. Either they want something or it's a display, right? It's a big display like, ooh, I'm so scary, leave me alone, right? Or it's like, I want something. I want to bite that prey, whatever it is, right? But the real ones, the ones where you're like, oh, wow, like he's for reals, those dogs, they have an intent, and you can see the intent, and you can see that, whether the decoy is wearing equipment or not, the dog will 100% bite them. But it even goes further than that, because there's also a lot of dogs that they're like good dogs, but they're not like, special dogs, but they will bite for real. Like, this is not like something that is, rare in and of itself. The other thing that you see with the real dogs, like the real special dogs, is they have an extreme commitment, right? They have an extreme commitment, and they are not going to be they're not going to be taken their commitment is not impeded by obstacles, whether that obstacle is the handler, whether that obstacle is the decoy, whether that obstacle is environmental. You'll see the dog persevere through obstacles to satisfy their commitment. Their commitment is it's like when you see someone who's like very driven, like, and you can all probably think of somebody that you've seen that's just like, you can see the intensity. It's just like coming off of them in like waves. They're just so committed to what it is that they're doing, and they're implacable. Like, they will not be stopped. That is the type of dog that we're speaking about. And it's, again, it's kind of hard to describe because we can speak about drive, we can speak about, grip quality, we can speak about, handler aggression and all these types of things that people, the willingness to bite for real and all these things that people tend to ascribe towards real dogs. And these individual qualities may be present in a real dog, but it's more than just those things because you can find those things in dogs that aren't special. Any Black Friday deals on the website? There will be some. There will be some on Monday, I believe. Luan Vu says, we viewers can't get enough Team Full Power raw humor. Thanks for considering. I'm glad you enjoy it. Brody's Morning Mushrooms says, has great content. If getting double dobies for home personal protection, is there a preferred order to obtaining the dogs, male or female first, or does that really matter? I mean, look, man, like I wish you luck in that. Make sure you're getting them from, people that produce the type of dogs that, you want, AKA dogs that can actually do that job because they're the average Doberman can't. But that being said, is there an order? Start with the male, probably. I would start with the male and then get a female afterwards. What are some common mistakes to avoid when obedience training a puppy? Not doing any kind of impulse control work or doing too much, right? Both of those things. There's a balance to be had with puppies. Some people are like, okay, I can't give him any rules because he's a puppy, right? And that's wrong. No, the puppy can have rules. There can be very strict rules around very certain things. But then there's some people, they go too far and they're like a drill sergeant all the time. And it's like, bro, it's a baby, right? It has an attention span this long, right? You got to go easy. So, there's a balance to be had between creating some level of impulse control and making learning fun, right? But not, learning is, everything is fun all the time and there's no impulse control and everything's just a party all the time, right? There's a balance to be had there. Do I vaccinate my puppies? Abso-freaking-lutely I do. And why? Because many years ago, I had a case of parvo come in. And parvo, I had 2 litters. I've spoken about this before. And, look, everybody is very suspicious of vaccinations. Ever since COVID, everybody has become extremely suspicious of vaccinations because of all the things with the vaccine companies and, autism and all these things. And I'm not going to speak to any of that. Suffice to say, I'll just say this. I also have a lot of skepticism about the vaccines that we are told to give our children and the COVID stuff and all that stuff. But I'm going to speak only now about the puppies, okay? 2 things can be true at once. A, there are some vaccines that are unnecessary and we over vaccinate both our dogs and our children. And B, there are some vaccines that are necessary and literally save lives, right? 2 things can be true at once. It's you don't have to pick either one or the other. And I fall into that category. I had 2 litters at the time when this case of parvo came in. 1 litter was too young to be vaccinated. They were like, actually, no, they weren't too young. They just hadn't done it yet. They were like 7 weeks or 6 weeks old, which is within the age that you can vaccinate. And then I had another litter and they were like 8 weeks old, right? Parvo came, both litters caught the parvo. Of the litter that had not received the shot, half of them died, even with full supportive care, right? Of the litter that had received the shot, none of them died. They all got a little bit sick, but they got over it quickly. And from that day onwards, not that I ever didn't do it, but I've always made sure, like 6 weeks, we got the vaccines, Ian Atkinson, hey, what are your thoughts on push grips versus pull grips for real world functionality and safety for the dog? I mean, look, if I have a choice, I train the dog to counter into the grip, but it's not something I concern myself with too much for real world dogs. With real world dogs, all I want is commitment. Show me that you're committed to biting whatever it is that you can bite. Show me that you have real commitment, right? That's it. What's your number at the office? My number? My number. I'm not giving out my number. Big Daddy Canine Handler. I'm definitely not giving you my number. You're not pretty enough to have my number. Christina says, love the knowledge from the lives. Thanks for all the shares and the wisdom. Also, thanks for the setups in the elite membership. Helps amazingly. Fantastic. Thank you. How do you measure intensity in dogs? It's kind of like, how do you measure intensity in dogs? I mean, it's everything's based on what you've seen. Right? Again, I'll use this example. I love to use it because it's so everybody can kind of understand it. If the fastest car you've driven is a Honda Civic, right? And the slowest car you've driven, let's say, is a minivan. So you got the minivan and you got the Honda Civic, and that's your spectrum. That's what you understand. But let's say the slowest car you've driven is a minivan, and the fastest car you've driven is a McLaren 720S. Okay, who's going to have a better understanding of intensity and speed? Obviously, the person that has the bigger and wider spectrum of experience. So it's the same with the dogs, right? Like I have the benefit of a lot of experience with dogs on the extreme end of the spectrum, on both ends of the spectrum, because I get so many pet dogs into train all the time, and they have, like, many of them have no drive, right? And then you have like the extreme working dogs, which, like, in many cases they have such high level of drive. So, I have the benefit of that experience. So I'm able to identify it relatively quickly. Whereas if you don't, I can see that, why you wouldn't. Do I offer private virtual classes for people who live outside of Canada? Yes, I do. I do consults all the time via Zoom. So if you want that, hit us up, info@shieldk9.ca. Luke says, do you reward engagement with reactive dogs when the dog chooses you over the other dog? Or is that nonsense? Yeah, of course. I always reward good choices. Why would I not reward a reactive dog who has made a good choice? I will always reward that. Around what age would you try leaving them outside the crate? It's not about age. It's about observed behavior. There are some dogs, like within like 5-6 months old, you can leave them outside. And there are some dogs that they need to be in the crate until they're like 18 months. So it's all about the individual dog. DNV says, you mentioned last week boarding blending makes pretty nervous dogs. Why? I found out a lot of people don't like his offspring. Yeah, unfortunately, he's a disappointment as a producer, but individually, he was a fantastic and special dog. I think because the things that made him special were not particularly heritable, or he didn't pass them on reliably, right? And I think what made him special was not the extremity of his drive, but was the amount of dominance and courage that he had. His willingness to persevere, commitment. You can watch that dog and you see commitment in everything he does in the protection work. I can't speak about the other phases because I never saw it, but in the protection work, you can see the commitment that that dog has, the intensity that that dog has, and then also, he's big. So put all of those things together and you have a beautiful picture. But unfortunately, it wasn't particularly heritable. Have I ever heard of sport dog e-collars? Yes, I have. They're low quality e-collars, but I mean, you can use them. I don't particularly like them. Blake says protection or sport first, and to purchase your bundle, how should I go about with a 4-month-old? Which one to start with? Obviously, puppy to adult that I have already, but next. Oh, you want to do like protection? Well, look, you can do either or. They're not like, oh, I have to do this first and then that first. I mean, keep in mind, like, you don't want to teach the dog maybe something like, don't do like a bunch of leg bites with a dog that you plan on doing IGP with. That would be my advice to you, right? But that being said, you can do real world protection and sport concurrently or separately. It doesn't matter. There's no like, you have to do this and then that. Have I ever considered sharing my thoughts in writing? Yeah, there's a book called No Nonsense Dog Training written by me. So it's all in writing there. All of this stuff compressed into a book. Pitbull Shano says, hey, Has, the Shield podcasts are awesome. Can't wait for the next season. Are you still posting on Patreon? Yeah, I post on Patreon on a regular. There's, multiple videos go up there every month. Any Black Friday deals for your courses? That's from Jimmy. Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Do I know anything about border terriers? I'm looking at getting one, doing competitive obedience and other things, but I'm getting too old to handle such big dogs. You're a German Shepherd person, but you're getting too old. No, I can't. I can't say that I do specifically. Um, I'm not an expert in border terriers. I'm sorry. What's the difference between dog train and e-collar tech models? I think you mentioned one of them is more blunt. What does that mean? What would be better for protection training? Get a dog tra. Less likely to overstimulate the dog. I like the double 1900 NCP. That's what I run. Some people don't like them though. Do I have any long coat black litters planned for next year? No, I don't. Mark Peluso, the guy I co-own Juice with, says has. Mark. Sorry, guys, I'm behind the comments. So, um, Pescador says correcting an 11-month-old high drive on a chain collar. They tell me she won't make protection if I do this with her. Well, if correcting your dog meant that the dog would never do protection work, then I would say that your dog will never do protection work anyways, and it's not a good dog. So, that's my unpopular opinion. You should be able to give your dog basic rules, impulse control, all of these things, and it shouldn't impede your dog's natural ability to perform in protection work, especially if it's a good dog. Clara says, love the Dobie video. Will you do more of those on other breeds? Did you ever work with dogos? I've worked with quite a few dogos. Yeah, I'll probably do more breed videos since people love them so much. Got my Dutchie at 8 weeks old. That's from CKX. He is now 1. From what I understand, he's still maturing. But at what point do you stop treating stuff as puppy mistakes and start looking at it as disobedience? Well, that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question because you're assuming that the dog knows what is right and wrong, whether he's 8 weeks old or 1 year old. That is a very loaded assumption, and it has nothing to do with his age. It has everything to do with what you've taught him, right? So if you're teaching him in a clear way and you're training him in a clear way, whether he's 6 months old or a year old, he should have a very clear understanding of what is desirable and what is undesirable. I don't consider a 1-year-old dog to be a puppy, nor do I treat them as such. I also don't consider a 7-month-old dog to be a puppy, and nor do I treat them as such. So, take from that what you will. Distinct Canine says, I believe it was around this time last year I joined the Pro Trainer course. If you're lucky enough to get it on a sale, go, because the amount of knowledge and info in there is incredible. Thank you, Distinct Canine. Distinct Canine says, my pup is a barker. She was since I picked her up from you guys. She's barking at me even though I do a lot of lure and reward from hand and feed from hand and will have my hand high up. Is it bad for her to be barking at me? I see it as reckless and not. Well, look, your dog is trying to activate you, my friend. She's trying to get you going. She's just, excited and she's just emoting, right? Now, in training, I like it because it means that the dog wants to work. The dog is pushing me for work. In life, I don't allow it actually, right? Like my dogs aren't allowed to just bark at me all the time. You might notice it's silent in here, right? I like it like that. I don't allow my dogs to bark at me all the time. They only bark at me in the context of competition training, right? So, absolutely, I don't allow that. Like if you're in the crate, you're not barking at me. If you're on the bed, you're not barking at me. Only if I have taken you out and we are actively training are you then allowed to bark at me. So I will correct it for sure. What are the signs that a dog will really protect you in a real situation versus a dog that won't? The overall confidence of the dog. Again, this is not something the average person could see. But again, also, you don't really know until you've trained the dog a little bit, right? And if you haven't trained the dog, you don't really know. Big Daddy Canine Handler. Dude, that's like a funny name. I was asking what number does someone call to talk with your staff. Someone said they couldn't get in touch with you. Oh, well, listen, shieldcanine.ca, our phone number and email is there. I believe I did give a phone number. So here's the phone number, 226 962 3341. And this will get you in touch with someone that answers the phone 7 days a week. I think he's still going to pick up for another half an hour. But 226 962 3341, or you can email us at info@shieldk9.ca. Will I add blinds to the Sport Dog bundle at all? Yes, I will do a blinds course. I'm going to start wrapping this one up shortly, guys. Smokestack says, in your personal opinion, what situations do most people need a watchdog versus people who need a personal protection dog? Well, personal protection dogs kind of, a jack of all trades in the sense that they can be a guard dog in the house, but then they also go everywhere with you. Whereas a watchdog is more of like just a property dog, right? The dog stays on the property and guards the property. What situation, like it depends what you want. If you want just a dog to be on your property, not necessarily a dog that will accept visitors, all of these types of things, just get yourself a watchdog and just get the dog that barks behind the fence and makes a big deal behind the fence. If you want a dog that you can kind of take everywhere with you and kind of is like a bodyguard, basically, then you get a personal protection dog. And those are two different things for the reasons that I outlined. A lot of people don't think their way through these things, right? They say, okay, well, I want a dog that's going to maul anybody on my property, except my gardener, and except the maid. They come once a week, like, oh, my kid has lots of friends. Is the dog going to like my kid's friends? It's like, you got to make your mind up, right? You got to be smart about these things. Okay, it's like if you want a dog that is going to be a true compound dog, that is really going to present a deterrent and an active threat to anybody breaking into your compound, right? Your property, so to speak. That's not going to be a friendly dog with people that he or she does not know, right? That's going to be a dog, especially if it's good at its job, that is only going to be okay with the people that he or she lives with. Even personal protection dogs, it's like, you want a dog that's like really about it. You want a dog that's really going to do it. Well, then you must be a little bit more careful with these types of dogs. It's not a golden retriever that you can turn into a, savage beast at the click of a finger. It's still, a certain type of dog. And it doesn't mean that the dog's a liability that you have to, you walk around with a muzzle and a chain on all the time. But at the same time, you also have to be a little bit more respectful of what that dog is. Munraj says, if I could trial one dog from the WSV, which one would you pick? None. I don't fanboy over other people's dogs. I couldn't even tell you. Like, and I'm not saying it, like I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't know. Like, it's uninteresting to me, right? In the sense that I only care about my dogs. For sure, there's good dogs there, but like, for me, like the only thing I think about WSV is like, am I taking Gage or am I taking Chico? I'm qualifying. Who am I going to qualify with next year? Who am I going to take next year? Like, that's the only thing. I don't think about other people's dogs, man. Like, I just don't. And I don't think, ooh, like I'd really love to be able to take that guy's dogs. Like, I really wouldn't. Like, I really wouldn't. Like, I don't care because it's not a dog from my kennel. It's not a dog I raised. It's not a dog I trained. It's not a dog I rehabbed or any of that kind of stuff. So there's no connection there. So I don't really care. How do I keep a dog to keep their back end next to you while doing a foos like Chico? Yeah, well, that would be my focus healing course, my friend. My focus healing course will teach you how to teach your dog rear end awareness in relation to you when you're healing. All right, guys, I'm going to start to wrap this one up. What's up? What's up? Ian says, when doing bite work with your own IGP dog, is there any specific do's and do nots that you would advise upon? Certain exercises or certain equipment only? Okay, so Ian, I would be careful not to do too much bite work, because what I've seen happen with people that do too much bite work with their own dogs, and it's happened to me a time or two, is that the dog actually really struggles to engage for any length of time on a strange decoy. They always kind of want to turn around, look at you, and bark at you because that's been their habit. So actually, I've really made sure that now the foundation is always set by somebody else. I don't do my own foundation anymore, because I really want to make sure that the dog has a very strong engagement towards, somebody else doing the decoy work. If you just teach them to engage here all the time, like we teach them to engage here all the time in obedience, now you're going to do it in protection. It's like all this engagement this way. The dog, obviously, over time, it's a creature of habit. All it learns to do is engage this way. And then when you're like, okay, go engage that way, it can be quite difficult for them. And then they constantly like get this conflict, between you and the thing that, or the person they're supposed to engage with. So I said, just make sure that you let the foundation, and the foundation, we're not even speaking about things like, striking and grips and all this stuff. Just like let somebody else drive the dog nuts and create a lot of frustration and arousal. Just like do it frequently so that the dog gets used to generating arousal and engagement towards, a strange decoy. That's the big thing. Battle Buddy K9 says, vocal in the bite, stop or allow. Well, how are you going to stop it? And why is he vocal in the bite? Right? That's the question. That is the question. In many cases, you get rid of the vocalizing on the grip by simply not doing anything and continuing to work the dog, and it goes away after the dog becomes more secure and confident in the work. And in other cases, you have to do certain things to make it go away. All right, guys, I am going to wrap this one up. I know there's a lot of comments. I'm going to wrap. I'll just answer Raphael's question. Is the Elite Sport Dog course complete from puppy to adult? Yes. All the training that I offer in there is for both puppies and for adults. Thanks, guys, for watching. It was a good live. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all on the next one.